Based on these statistics, I'm trying to get out of your way, excuse me, at least 2 children will die during this talk. These stats come from the top organizations in the world in 2002. They are the most recent statistics available, and they're only those that are reported. My name is Hanna Roth, and for the last 20 years I've studied child abuse. I'm a writer, a coach, a mother of 2, and the founder of the Rainbird Foundation. As a coach, we study game. It's critical to the success of anything that someone be stepping back and looking at the big picture that others on the field are too close to see. I'm here today to share with you what I've found about child abuse. I'm one of those heretics who actually believe that children really are our future, and I'm committed to the end of child abuse. My parents were well-educated teachers. My father ran for political office. They were leaders in our religious community. But behind closed doors, my father was a violent man, and my mother knew and either did nothing or helped him. Additionally, my father was a convicted child molester, and what he did to children in the schools where he taught pales in comparison to what he did to us at home. I don't remember much of my childhood, but there were people who knew what was happening to us. They did nothing. They saw us. They heard our screams. I don't remember much about my childhood, but I'll never forget the people who did nothing. The estimated annual costs of child abuse in the United States alone, $136,855,319,625 per year. If you're wondering why I'm smiling, it's because this number is so staggering to me that I can't grasp it. So we broke it down, and we're spending about $4,340 per second on issues related to child abuse. In the last 15 seconds it took me to read this, we just spent $65,100 on direct and indirect costs of child abuse, which means that we just cleaned up a bit of the blood, but we spent nothing on eradication. We have a very big problem that we're barely responding to. Children are being sexualized at ever younger ages. Our 3rd largest organized crime on the planet is child sexual trafficking. They generate an annual $12 billion a year, and of the 194 countries on this planet, we could not find one that doesn't violate or destroy its children. We started the Rainbird Foundation because we couldn't find another organization committed to the end of every form of child abuse. What we found for the most part was prevention, and prevention is not the end. Now, I'm not slagging prevention organizations. Prevention is critical to the end of child abuse. But while prevention is required for the end is not required for prevention. Let me explain. Prevention came from the idea that while we can't end child abuse, we can save some. Now, in other words, that means the next best thing to the end is prevention. And then we've confused the two, confusing prevention with the end. Additionally, prevention organizations, like any institution, have all the same trappings and the same need to survive, which becomes as important, if not more so, than the issue itself. So prevention needs child abuse to prevent it, whereas the end is the disappearance, as well as the disappearance of the organizations working on it, to include the Rainbird Foundation. There are some extraordinary people working on the end. I'd like to introduce you to 2 of them. Dr. Sunitha Krishnan works on saving children and women from sexual slavery. She works with India to unite government, big business, and nonprofits to end sexual trafficking. She is one of the co-founders of Prajwala, which provides women and children with education and shelter. In her 2009 TED Talk, Sunitha said that her greatest challenge is getting us to see these people as human beings with the same rights that we have. Andrew Vax is a pioneer of legal representation for children. He has been working in this field for over 40 years. He's very influential to my even being alive any longer. I mean, now. Andrew is an author and attorney for children and one of the founding members of Protect. a national association that fights for children's rights legally. Andrew says that ending child abuse is the only holy war truly worthy of its name. Now, we are right about what we're right about, and we'll fight for it even when we're wrong. This is the case with child abuse. We will cite facts, like the statistics I just shared with you, or we'll say things like, well, we can't end it in every nook and cranny. And if that's not enough, we'll pull in some myths that are generally agreed upon, like the inherent nature of human evil. It only happens to poor and educated minorities. Of course, my story destroys that one. And then there's the sadly delusional, it hasn't happened to me or anyone that I know. The problem with child abuse is people don't like to talk about it. So you probably don't know some of the people in your life who have been abused. Then, however it is that we get our evidence, we then share our idea because we know we're right about it. With regard to the idea that child abuse can't end, we've shared it so well, we've made it global. But what if we're not right about this? If you look at these questions, you'll quickly realize that you can't answer them. This is where the idea for the end began. If we have no quantifiable evidence that it can't end, it's possible that it can. If that's the case, then we can generate a new stand for the end. In taking this stand, I've been laughed at, gossiped about, dismissed, accused of being a dreamer. People have written us letters telling us how it can't end and that we can save a few hundred or thousand. We've gotten calls from angry organizations telling us that they've got this covered, and which is code for get out of the business, and it can't end. We have been shocked by this response because we were kind of expecting to be, welcomed open armed, which was naive. But what we began to see was a much bigger picture. The biggest factor at the heart of child abuse persisting is resignation and despair. Some of us are cynical, which is a really cool way of expressing resignation. However we express it, we have just given up. We don't think we can do anything about it. It's too big, and it seems impossible. The second factor is that we need to know. This has been drummed into us since we were children. We're praised if we know, we're punished if we don't know. There is so much that we don't know about child abuse, and knowing makes us look good. So since we don't know, we can't talk about it. I spoke with a woman recently, and at the end of our conversation about the Rainbird Foundation, she said to me, "Now I can sleep better knowing that you've got this covered." Well, I don't have this covered. And either she didn't want to get what I was talking about or she just didn't get it. But either way, her comment was a clever way of letting herself off the hook. See, she saw this as my thing. She didn't see how this issue could impact her, that her daughter could marry a man who could beat her because he'd been beaten as a child. Her grandchild could be sexually violated by a teacher or a priest or a group leader because they'd been sexually violated as children. That she could get into a car accident hit by a drunk driver or a drug addict who was medicating to avoid memories too painful to confront. She didn't make these connections, and most of us don't. The final factor at the heart of child abuse persisting is that we're oblivious to it. Now, we know it exists, but if it doesn't directly impact us, we don't do anything about it. And it has to hit us hard before we'll take action. Child abuse is the hidden issue. Our world and US stats are old. They don't give us full information. We do not know how many adults are abusing children. And the problem is, they look like you and me. They don't have horns and fangs. And they work really hard. They spend a lot of money and time to hide what they're doing so they can keep doing it and not get caught. The uncomfortable truth is that based on the statistics that we have, some percentage of people here today are abusing their children, whether it's physical, verbal, sexual, by neglect, or purchasing and watching child pornography. This is an overview of the contributors to the persistence of child abuse. To twist a lovely sentiment, it takes a village to rape a child. This is part of that village. And as you can see, every one of us fits up there somewhere on that wheel. Now, the folks on the front lines, they deal with the real lives behind the statistics and atrocities that we don't even read about. I mean them no disrespect. They really are our heroes. And this problem is getting bigger. In Seth Godin's 2006 TED Talk, he talked about things that were broken or poorly designed or intentionally designed to not work. It was a great talk, and it actually got me thinking something I've never thought before. What if this system isn't broken? What if it was perfectly designed by some well-intentioned individuals who only thought that child abuse needed to be dealt with for the rare afflicted few? What if this model just wasn't built to deal with the masses of children being crammed into it, yet we keep using it and blaming it when it fails us, which is a little bit like building a plane out of feathers and blaming it when it doesn't fly. The CRC is the Convention on the Rights of the Child. It is a legally binding, almost universally agreed upon Bill of Rights for children. Of the 192 countries on the planet, in the UN that have signed, 2 have not. Somalia and the United States. And Somalia has been in a civil war, but they're getting ready to sign. In the last 22 years of the CRC's existence, George Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and now Barack Obama have failed to ratify the CRC. Now, obviously, this undermines our credibility as a world leader, but it totally destroys anything we say we're committed to for our children. Now, no one supports child abuse, obviously. And most of us here think that we've already taken a stand, but a stand demands action. And most of us think that our government are going to come to our rescue, or we've confused prevention with the end and we think our nonprofits have this covered, or we're just resigned and doing nothing. But child abuse doesn't need to be here. It isn't a natural phenomenon like gravity. That's the good news. But to end it, we need to face the realities of it and create a new paradigm. Standing on the shoulders of prevention, we need to face the seemingly impossible and take a stand for the end. This is where a cultural transformation begins, and then there is so much that we can do. Solving it's expensive, but we're already spending billions, and at best we're treading water. We need to start thinking proactively rather than reactively and create projects that take on the challenge of eradication. And we need to build, we're not always going to get it right, but experimentation is going to lead to breakthroughs. Our pedophiles and sex trade industry are maximizing on the technology that we've got and the internet, and so can we. We have the money, we have the resources, and we haven't begun to tap into the possibilities of either. Our national statistics are 2 to 3 years behind the times, and everyone in the field of child abuse knows this. Now let me tell you before you go south on the stats. 3 years ago, a child is killed. We find out about it today. But the person who was in that job that allowed that child to slip through the cracks either died, was transferred, or retired. How do we hold them accountable? And in the absence of accountability, how do we improve anything? We need a mechanism that collects national annual statistics in the year they occur. Alaska can give us statistics right now for 2011. If they can, so can everyone else. I'm going to read this because it's very important and information I couldn't possibly memorize to you. ICAC is a task force dedicated to internet crimes against children. They are proactively working on closing down sexual predators. They track online users of child pornography to include their sexual activities with children. Hundreds of thousands are identified on maps. The Department of Justice has daily access to this data and the authority to investigate and prosecute right now. We have millions of records of suspects worldwide and hundreds of thousands of unique computer serial numbers. But less than 2% are being investigated. Congress knows about this. Why aren't they funding this more? Now, our politicians say that children are our future during their campaigns, but that's not what they respond to. They respond to lobbying forces and the demands of the people and the corporations who put them in office. We need lobbyists who will make our politicians do the right thing. And then we need to let them know with our vote that if they don't do the right thing, we'll stop voting for them. Every legal success comes from hardcore lobbying and media. And when there's enough of both, there's a game change. Our government agencies and our nonprofits need to join forces. They need to share information rather than hoarding it. We need to divvy up the responsibilities so that less organizations are doing the same thing and more money can be put towards prevention and eradication. And we need to design our organizations so that they can go out of business as we get the problem resolved. We have archaic laws. I study them all the time. They're hard to understand, but they were built so long ago that it boggles the mind they still exist. We need to abolish these laws. Now, I've told you a lot of things that need to get fixed. The simplest part is that we each need to start by taking a stand. You take a stand, and then you have 5 people take a stand for the end. And then they have 5 people, and so on, and so on. That really is how this begins. The days of child abuse, being blackened eyes and broken children cowering in corners, is over. It pulled at our heartstrings, it opened our wallets, and it threw us deeper into despair and doing nothing. This is the face of the end of child abuse, and children are counting on us to do something. Your contribution depends on where on that wheel of contributors we just looked at you exist. The place where you contribute is the very same place where you can make a difference right now. Your skills and your access to that part of the wheel can help to end child abuse. There are some extraordinary people here, and we look forward to working with you. Now, in case there's any question about what the value of ending child abuse is, reduction of bullying, violence, spousal abuse, drug addiction, alcoholism, rape, murder, terrorism, an increase of healthy children, happy families, communities that are whole, increased productivity in schools and the workplace because people aren't dragging their stuff into the workplaces and schools and they can get educated better. And billions of dollars that are currently going to child abuse can go into better health care, ending hunger, medical research, get rid of some of these diseases on this planet, better education, more teachers, improved housing, child care, support for parents, technological breakthroughs in every area of life. I could keep on going on. Ending child abuse isn't about charity, it's about equality, which is really too bad because we're really good at charity. However, equality demands us to treat our children the same way that we treat ourselves and give them the same rights that we enjoy and have them stop being treated as possessions. It forces us to face our ineffectiveness as parents and dealing with this issue. It mocks our inability to discuss this simply because it offends our sensibilities, and it makes us hypocrites by revealing our true commitment to platitudes rather than our children. It's time to educate ourselves and each other and use the proper tools to respond to this. It's time to take a stand and be counted as an architect or a designer for the end of child abuse. And it's time to commit, not to an idea that makes us feel good for a day or two, but to an ongoing idea that contributes to the end once and for all. Thank you.